Okay, everybody, so this is my spoiler review of episode 7 of Severance. This one is directed by Ben Stiller. He had done the first couple episodes, and it's written by Helen Lay. So we jump right where we left off from last episode where Mark is with Ragabai, and she's saying a lot of important stuff here. She's like, I put that chip in your head. I'm the only one who can deactivate it to Mark, she says. And she brings up how it's so infantilizing, this process of severance, but she then reflects and says that he is just a baby, though, his innie, because he's only being, severed for 2 years, which is interesting because, again, going to all the theories and themes about, them being like children, these innies, and the different lengths they've been to, especially with like an Irving who's been severed for a while, and that he's seeing black goo and different side effects. So it's really just kind of falling into that umbrella. I love some of the writing here where she's like, maybe he dreams every day about clawing to the surface, talking about Mark's innie, and says you brought him into this world without his permission based on your own desire for emotional convenience. So this is when he says back, I'm not a bad person. And she says, I think you want to do what's right for both of you. So it's really interesting, her saying that. It makes you kind of question even his choice to even be severed and anybody's choice to be severed. But also, this is really kind of making you think about the possibilities for this show because, the characters we know, how different their outies could be than their innies are similar. But we know Mark has a lot of similarities, and what he, at the end of the day, is doing is right. He's trying to go for the just cause. He is a good guy, like he says. But it makes me wonder, when we get to know Helly's outie more, what is she going to really be like? So I think it's very cool how this show has so much possibilities, having these kind of two versions of people, but at the same time, similarities inside of them. So Grainer shows up at this point, and like I predicted last review, he wasn't going to make it alive. I mean, there was no way they were going to get out of that situation of Grainer following them and not having to kind of get rid of his character, and Ragabai hits him in the back of the head with a bat. But this leads to the big moment where she gives Mark Grainer's security card and takes Petey's phone. So this is huge because just the innie of Mark getting a security card is a huge, huge advantage for the MDR department. Now, what was interesting to me is Miss Selvig, aka Harmony, sees Mark throw his clothes into the garbage, and she notices it's at an earlier time than he usually goes to his garbage. So I am very convinced that Miss Selvig went back and grabbed those clothes because she is going to need them to kind of prove what happened to Grainer here through Mark. So there's a lot going on I liked with Miss Selvig here and the side of Harmony outside of work, which we're going to get to. So this episode is crazy for the character of Milchick. It's my favorite episode of the character of Milchick. And he's really just in deep shit this episode. And he's doing serious damage control. He's greeting Mark. He's greeting Dylan the same way he had told Mark to greet Helly after her incident with the big fake smile. And now he's saying, new protocol, I'm going to walk you to your department from the elevator. And we see that last episode they installed those doors. So they're literally locked in here in the MDR department, which is just crazy. And it's crazy. The whole information that changes everything and really sets up to make this episode really interesting is Dylan now knowing that he has a kid outside of work, and that Dylan will eventually reveal to the MDR department that they can on and off people severing outside of work, which is huge. Now remember, Milchick does mention to Dylan she has not told Cobel about any of this yet because she's super stressed, but he doesn't want to open that can of worms with her either because, again, he doesn't know how she's going to react, and this will be something later on when Dylan says to Milchick, if you want to, rat me out, I'll go gladly to Miss Cobel as well. But Milchick knows, he doesn't really want her finding out about all this because this is not looking good for him. Now, my one moment I kind of was a little annoyed at with the writing was when Dylan asked Milchick when they first were together in Lumen, he says, is the boy that he saw my son? Why didn't Milchick just lie to him here? I thought it was strange that he wouldn't kind of make up some kind of story about who that kid really was to at least give him some doubt. He confirmed it, so that will give him no doubt, and he's just going to want to know more about his son. So I thought that was strange that he wouldn't lie about that just to kind of cool Dylan off. It was a very stupid decision by Milchick, which felt out of character. But you see, he brings up special perks to Dylan that he's going to try to get him because he knows that is what Dylan lives off here at Lumen. He's a guy who loves his perks. It gets him distracted from what's really going on. But the brilliant thing about this episode with Dylan's character is the perks aren't working on him anymore. He is awakened. So this is where I want to go to a fascinating scene before we come back to what's happening at Lumen is with Cobel, who Milchick's trying to get on the phone with. She's not answering. She didn't come in today. He's telling her Grainer didn't come in today, but she's too busy playing Nanny of the Year for Devin, and there's a lot of mystery to why she's really investing her time in Devin. We get the answers here, which I love, but we learn a lot too. Now, Devin brings up what she experienced last episode where she saw the senator and his wife Gabby, and that Gabby didn't remember her. And then she says to Miss Selvig, my husband works at Lumen. Mark, I wonder if they could sever people outside of Lumen, if they ever do that. And then she's like, what if you had a baby and then didn't want to know who you had it with? And what was fascinating is the line Harmony says back, saying, I wouldn't remember Clark Gable if I hadn't given birth. So she's throwing a Clark Gable reference out there, right? Now, he was famous from 1931, his career to 1961. So clearly, the theory is that, Harmony is just a version of the original, let's say, Harmony, that is this chip, that she has a chip in her head, continuing that theory of Severance where they want to extend life, right? That if she's referencing something like that, that brain part of her, that chip, is an older woman, and it's way older than the body we're seeing of Harmony, and that she's probably moved on to this body. And also remember, the way Patricia Arquette is playing Harmony, she's talking like someone from back in the day. She's not talking like someone today. So it makes complete sense. So those little lines like that are huge hints at what's really going on. And when we saw in her shrine those old childhood pictures of her, those were old pictures. So that's got to be the original form, the original body that just keeps moving on through life, through the chip. It's really her being way older than she actually appears. That's what I obviously think is going on now. That reference confirmed it for me. And then what's huge when you look back at the big reveal at the end of this episode is this line where Harmony asks Devin if Mark talks about his wife, and then asks, does Mark ever thinks he sees her? So this tells you why the main reason she's there with Devin, she's checking in that Mark isn't figuring things out about his wife, who we learn now is Miss Casey. So Gemma is Miss Casey. He literally works with his wife, and what's crazy is the visual cue they had to this was, I think, an episode or two ago when she's coming out of the break room and he's passing her, and they stop and they have this very knowing look at each other. So you wonder okay, that was a little hint, and now looking back at that scene, you kind of see there's more importance to that relationship because they've done a good job of not showing them together much to kind of not make it obvious, and it makes sense now exactly why Harmony would be asking Devin these questions. So we get another great scene where back at Lumen, we're getting our first experience of the MDE experience, the music dance experience. It's 5 minutes, right? And you see that Milchick's it's a hard day for all of us. And that's where Helly kind of takes a pause, hard for you, but he doesn't explain why, but clearly because, he found out about Grainer. He's got the stuff he's not telling Miss Cobel. Everything's just going out of control for him. Now, it's interesting. Helly chooses the maracas, but Irv says back to that, you should have gone with the castanets. I'm sure that's going to be a line that's important later on. That will make sense later on. Maybe we'll see that when we get an Irv episode eventually, why he would say that, because it's such a random line. And I love that if you look at the list of music choice they have, there's Hootin' Tootin' Country and Exciting Rap. I thought that was really funny. But of course, Helly chooses Defiant Jazz. That's exactly what Helly is. But what you got to understand about Milchick's here is he's encouraging everyone, even not just Helly, but everyone to, take advantage of this 5-minute dance, this perk you can all see. So the point of that is that it's showing Dylan would normally be the one to run up. Even if Helly won it, he's still going to go up there and dance and see all the perks and see what is this. And he doesn't here. This isn't the Dylan we know. Again, he's different now. The best part is the way that Milchick's dancing, and when he goes up and he's dancing to Dylan, it just reminded me of Jackass with the party boy dance. So funny. And you see, though, Dylan's about just explode. He eventually does, because again, he's thinking about his son. Now he's going to want to know what's his name, like he says to Milchick, and then he freaking bites him. But that's where you see what I was talking about, where Milchick says, I'm reporting this to Miss Cobel, and he's like, okay, yeah, you want to go together. But that's where you see he's got something on Milchick now about him coming out of work and doing this with no approval. But my favorite part of the episode that just made me laugh a lot is when Milchick's leaving and he turns around and he says, the music dance experience is officially canceled. I thought that was just, again, one of those funny moments the show kind of throws in this crazy world we're in. But this is where Dylan drops a huge bomb and tells the group, like Milchick told him not to do, not to tell any colleagues about this huge information that they can turn us on and off outside of work. And that's going to clearly make all of them really want to rebel now. And again, this just adds to more of my fascination of them talking about where Helly's like, if they can wake us up on the outside, what's to stop us from doing it to ourselves? But where I feel like a Helly outie might get in their way, I'm excited to see kind of conflict like that, conflict of someone versus themselves. Another thing wasn't crazy about with the writing though, just little nitpicks, but when they ask Mark, do you know where the security office is? He says, Petey showed it to me during a fire alarm last year. Okay, so for me with the writers, it's like, okay, you used your Petey out, don't do that again. You get one, right? If they keep doing that, Petey showed me once, like, that's too easy, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but I'm cool with it because it's the first time, but never again. Don't just keep, justifying how he would know where the security office is by just saying, Petey showed me once. We don't want to get in that habit. So it's cool. We're already getting these visual answers, right? Like Mark and Helly in the security office, you see this panel and there's a bunch of knobs and switches. But what's interesting is you're seeing different labeled departments and they're all small departments. You're seeing some departments are just 2 people, some with 4, some with 6. They're not this huge thing. And like they're even saying, there's not all these security guards either. There's a lot of illusion going on with Lumen. And the tension in this episode just ramps up when Cobel gets in the building. And when we're also seeing that Irv is going to find Britt. So that's where this really starts to shine. And Ben Stiller is just showing how amazing he is at doing suspense in this show. Now, what got me excited for the future of the show is when Cobel is informed by Natalie that the board found out that Grainer is dead, and she's learning about it here as well. But she demands to them, literally, to show her findings that reintegration is real and that she wants it in person. So they finally agree to it, and they said in a week they'll do it at the Egan Family Gala. This is going to be huge, I think. I'm excited for this scene. I'm excited to see members of the board. I do believe, my theory is that we only got 2 episodes left. I think this will be something we'll see in the finale, and it's going to be the thing that sets up the season 2 plotline. Remember, season 2 has already been approved, so this story is going to go on for a bit. It's going to set up more of the board versus Harmony, but also the board being more central characters, I think, for season 2 and this story of, them finding out about reintegration. It's going to be interesting. Now, also, Dylan steps up here when Helly and him and Mark are talking about how they're going to go about this with the switches, that he's going to be willing to turn the switches off, stay after work, and he's really pushing, like, I can do this 2-man job. When you see writing like that, I am going to predict that Dylan is a goner. We got his little story here about him finding out his kid, so we knew more about him before we would lose him. Now he's going to do the hero thing, so I think that this is it for Dylan, and that's going to be one of the big deaths. And again, I think, which I already predicted too, that Bert and Irv would have some kind of tragedy. I think what we're seeing in this episode, which we're going to go to right now, is that, Bert's not going to make it. So it's heartbreaking, right, when Irv sees Bert, because they're giving him a retirement party. Irv knows what this means, that they're going to kill Bert. And just the Bert outie video, it hits so hard because his outie doesn't know who Irv is. So it's tragic, him hearing Bert's outie even say, like, I don't really know you guys. I don't really have memories of any of you, but, thanks for your time. And this is so hard and gut-wrenching to Irv. And I love John Turturro's moment here where he yells at Milchick. He's like, are we all just going to let Bert die? And Milchick's like, Bert's out. He's retiring. It will happen to you someday. And the best moment is when Irv says, you smug mother effer, you're not severed. No one can rip your memories out like they never existed. Because again, that's how he's feeling now watching this video of Bert's outie. And we see this Bert situation was exactly the thing to break a character like Irv. It's great character writing because Irv, we saw earlier in the season, is the one who was always obeying everything. He was a man of company, and now he is the rebel. He literally is going to have the line, let's burn this place to the ground. It's a great turn for a character, and it's earned. But I think that is where Bert served his purpose now, and that's why I don't think Bert will survive this clearly. And that's what's cool too. Like I'm not sure about any of this, and they could all survive, but I do think it's cool with this show. They do also, because it's such a mystery show and we don't know every location and who works here, we don't even know the board members, they can introduce a lot of new characters and have kind of maybe Helly, Mark, and Irv be the central characters and add in new ones each season while we lose some. I think that works for this type of show. So this big moment at the end is, we've seen this whole episode that Mark is blowing it with Alexa. Now he's drinking heavy here, and he rips his picture of his wife Gemma in front of her. Yikes. I hope Alexa tells Devin that he's in this bad of a state, but he's clearly blown it with Alexa here, someone who'd be really good for him. But we see this big reveal that Gemma is Miss Casey. And like I said, I think the biggest hint was when they passed each other walking out of the break room a couple episodes, if you watch that scene back. It's a really cool reveal. I haven't been on top of the Reddit for this show, so I can't say if I've seen any theories on it, but I haven't, so it shocked me. I was like, that's awesome. I did not think of that at all. I'm sure people have, though, and I'm probably going to hear that in the comments, but I think it's a great twist. And that's the bittersweet thing about Reddit, too. Sometimes for shows like this, I do like reading theories, and I don't, because then if someone gets it right, it's not as, like, that exhilarating feeling. Like, spoilers right now. If you haven't seen Westworld Season 1, I'm going to say spoilers, so skip ahead like 15 seconds. But in the middle of Westworld, when they revealed Bernard was a robot. That was the biggest twist ever, but I hadn't read any theories. So I like that magic too, and I don't want to lose that for a show like this. So it's tough. But anyway, after that tangent, I'm giving this episode a 9.3. This is back to quality Severance for me. The last 2 episodes I liked, but I didn't think were as good as the beginning of the season. This to me was a banger. I really enjoyed it, and it really pushed the plot along, had some exciting moments, and we learned a lot of information here. I would argue this is the episode we learned the most information with the less new questions but more info, so that should satisfy a lot of people. And I do like that the show seems like it definitely has a long end game here, a good plan coming out here, because there's so much more for us to learn as well. We only got 2 episodes left, so I'm sure these are going to be absolutely crazy, and I'm excited to see what goes on. So let me know what you guys think. Did you like this episode, your theories? Anything you want to say, I love to hear it. And please, like I said, if you subscribe, it helps me in so many ways. So please subscribe so you don't miss one of my review of Severance. I do other shows as well, movie reviews, celebrity interviews. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And I'll see you next time.